Hello there. Welcome to yet another edition of my semi-annual, whenever I get round to it, edition of Doomed Demo Disc. If you're not familiar with the format, this is where I put aside the notion of doing a deep dive on one mod in particular, and instead shine the spotlight on a few interesting bits and bobs that I've spotted in my journeys throughout the modding community. Now, some of these may just merely be conceptual ideas, early alpha versions, or merely taster sessions where I've only had time to dedicate playing maybe a level or two of a larger WOD. In any case, I hope you find the selection interesting. Links, as usual, will be in the description below, and without further ado, let's get knee-deep into the mods. First up, we have Doom Fighters, and yep, it pretty much transforms Doom into a beat-em-up. Now granted, in this relatively early form, the moveset is a little bare bones, but that still does not detract from the satisfaction of pummeling wayward demons in the face. You've got a flurry of light attacks on mouse 1, which you can then vary up with heavier attacks on mouse 2, and if you want to get a little bit more spicy, you can also throw in jumping combo attacks. Jumping and pressing mouse 2, for example, will allow you to deliver a flying sidekick. Now, despite the limited nature of what you can actually pull off during this particular version of Doom Fighters, it's safe to say that what it does with aplomb. The feedback in terms of audio and visuals is quite satisfying, refreshingly old school in a ways, what with the chop-socky sound effects and the visual sparks that fly when a hit connects. And despite being generally allergic to the usage of 3D models for either enemies or Doom Guy in mods, I find that the implementation of the player model here is a-okay. And then there's the Crucible. You can wield the Crucible. It replaces the chainsaw slot and features a fair number of fun attacks. The jumping attack combo is certainly one of my favorites, and there's a flurry that ends in a wide sweeping move that just looks badass as all hell. Limited amount of usage, as you might imagine, depleted on successful contact with an enemy, and once depleted, disappears. That is, of course, until you run across yet another chainsaw spawn. I think it goes without saying that this has a lot of potential. More movesets could easily be introduced, different combos between mouse 1 and mouse 2 producing different results, and if I'm not mistaken, those 3D model barrels that appear during the course of this mod may eventually become pick-upable and throwable. But yeah, there's a whole ton of things I'd love to see introduced into this mod. I mean, just go look at God Hand for a laundry list of things I'd love to see included. As I said earlier though, relatively bare bones, quite easy to burn through the vast majority of what this mod currently has in a relatively short space of time, but that still doesn't stop it from being a cool as all heck idea, and one that has just oodles of potential. On a similarly pugilistic, albeit not entirely pugilistic front, is the Space Pirate. Currently available in demo form by the name of the First Hunt, the Space Pirate, from the moment you enter its menus, just exudes this ridiculous sense of polish and quality. When it comes to the available gameplay, it largely consists of an arena time trial ordeal with a visual aesthetic that reminds me quite a lot of the cyber grind from Ultra Kill. Naturally, you're going to be shooting for as high a score as possible, the highest grade granted being X, and in pursuit of that grade, you have 3 available loadouts: the Burst Kit, the Zoom Kit, and Melee only. Naturally, the first is the most entertaining, considering it contains a loadout of modded weapons, essentially extending the utility, adding alternate fire modes, and just generally being a whole bunch of fun to use. Something that will certainly stand out to most people here is the smoothness of the animation when it comes to the handling of the weapons, be it reloading, swapping, or otherwise. It's almost distractingly smooth. As for those alternate fire modes, when it comes to the handgun, the alt fire gives you gangster-style burst fire, and then when it comes to what I imagine is an SMG, it can be transformed into a shotgun-style weapon. Fun to use, quite responsive, especially in regards to that semi-automatic handgun, but feels like it could just use a little bit extra punch in terms of audio feedback. Speaking of punch, the melee option here is an absolute hoot. In a similar fashion to Doom Fighters, you got a flurry of punches on mouse 1, whereas mouse 2 includes kicks. These can be combined in a number of ways to provide alternate combos, but the real centerpiece of the action for me is the ability to pull off a charged uppercut that will send enemies flying up into the air where they'll hover, allowing you to juggle them to death with a flurry of additional blows. The whole thing just feels effortlessly fast and fluid, a joy to play, a real nice balance between melee and gunplay, not to mention movement, what with the ability to jump and knee slide, just letting you sprinkle in a little bit of extra spice into combat encounters. And man, I am excited to see where this project goes next. Heck of a lot of potential here. Looking forward to seeing what's going to be included in the rest of that weapons roster, not to mention what might become of that tantalizing slot in the HUD for money. No doubt leading to all sorts of upgrades, modifications, and who knows what. Either way, certainly a project to keep your eye on. Holy shit, Hell Crusher. If there's only one thing I need to say about this gameplay mod, it's that it gave me the same feeling I had when I played Russian Overkill for the first time. I am not kidding. I feel like I was barely a minute into playing this before I just broke down into a mad cackle because one of the earlier weapons I found was the Hell Crusher itself, a glorified warhammer with a BFG glued to the top of it. And that's not discounting the fact that the black talons here are ridiculous enough as it is. These are starting weapons. Want to know what the ult does? Well, it makes them go. This is one possible starting loadout, by the way, because the black talons can be swapped out for either the Executioner, the Infinity, or the Boomstick. And you know what's ridiculous? The Boomstick, the goddamn double-barrel shotgun, is probably in the bottom 2 of this selection. But you know what? I can't help but feel like I'm missing one here. Oh god, yeah, the goddamn Mammoth Tusk. Let me introduce you to this absolute monster of a revolver that, for all I can tell, fires 50 cal shells. Not only does the primary fire feel like it has enough force behind it to break every bone in your arm, but its ult allows you to spin it repeatedly, charging it up as you go, delivering an absolute whopper of a shot when you finally decide to pull the trigger. As for the rest of the weapons available here, there's a bit of a Doom Eternal flavoring to it. You'll see it in the standard shotgun, which features a triple burst ult. You certainly see it when it comes to the chain gun, which can then be altered up into big fat turret death mode. And you can certainly see it in things like HUD elements, the ability to mount, you know, all that kind of stuff. But really, the weapons, the way they feel, the damage they inflict is just truly the gooey center of this mod. Oh hey, while I'm at it, did anyone order a 6-barrel shotgun? Yes, the primary does indeed fire every single barrel at the same time. And yes, there is of course a luxury ult option for the discerning gentleman that seems to imbue every shell with arcane hellfire. This thing, I don't have much to say other than it absolutely comprehensively thuds through enemies. Rocket Launcher is much improved by granting it a high-velocity rapid-fire primary, and the secondary, well, good grief, why not throw in a triple-burst homing shot? Go nuts! Now the plasma gun slot is pretty interesting. Primary isn't too far divorced from what you might expect from a plasma gun, but there's also an additional heat meter that you can build that'll allow you to expend that excess heat as even hotter red plasma, which is quite useful if you run out of ammo, because if you've still got that full meter, you can just spit red hot death instead. Naturally, this brings us to the big kahuna itself, the BFG, and I gotta be honest, there's not a lot different here from what you might normally expect. I mean, sure, it certainly fires faster, and there's certainly prettier particle effects when the shot connects, but, I don't know, there's something that can be done here. If you're gonna be OP with everything on the lower end, you're gonna have to do something utterly ridiculous with the upper end, and yeah, I feel like there could be some embellishments in store for this. After all, this is just version 0.4. Oh, and before I forget, the Helios cannon is a thing, and it needs work. That's all I'll say. It needs work. Anyways, early days, but still, as far as ridiculous weapon mods go, tremendous, well-polished fun. Oh yeah, and don't forget to throw in Nash Gore if you want the extra gory bits. And finally, for today, I have a haphazard WOD recommendation in the form of Infested. I say haphazard because I unfortunately only had time to give a playthrough of one level, but I'd say on the basis of that alone, it's enough to formulate a strong idea of what this WOD is all about. In that regard, Infested has you taking up the esteemed mantle of pest control in a large mansion, only it's not rats or creepy crawlies, but gosh, wouldn't you know it, demons. Intriguingly, this is more than just rampaging around a level shooting things in the face. Rather, you have to seek out gore nests which, when provoked, will shield themselves up, open portals, and cause demons to spill through. Honestly, it's a refreshing change from the typical structure of your average level where you're seeking out keys or switches. Instead, progression here governed by taking out said gore nests and allowing the fleshy blockages to subside. The process of doing so, however, is not easy. Ultraviolence providing a fair chunk of challenge, and it's not all vanilla tinged as you can plainly see. There's a few swaps here, the machine gun here for example taking up the mantle of the chain gun while still providing a reasonable degree of dakka, and activating the second gore nest of this level will grant you the dual mode shotgun, which has a very crunchy looking sprite. Can't quite place it, but it's crispy, to say the least. It can be fired both single and double barrel modes, useful if you don't want to expend too much ammo taking out small fry versus saving both barrels for the bigger kahunas. You may have also noticed that there's a smidge extra enemy variety here as well. Alongside your standard imps, for example, you'll find grey imps. These can chuck fireballs at a faster rate, and you'll also spot red pinkies. It just doesn't sound like the red. They're not pink. The reddies, if anything. These are certainly more aggressive than the vanilla brethren, worth taking out ASAP. And as for other varieties, well, I have yet to run across them, but no doubt we'll see some appearances in latter levels if this initial one is anything to go by. But overall, as a first impression, encouraging. Really encouraging. I love the usage of the various wings of the museum here, once dedicated to the Hell on Earth conflict, now home to yet another conflict that transforms them into Horde arena encounters. The atrium to the rear as well is a wonderful little area that has its own intense bit of battling for you to endure, not to mention a tantalizingly placed soul sphere to the back that, considering jumping is disabled, caused me a little bit of head scratching when it came to figuring out how best to get to it. But as they say, where there's a will, there's a way. But yeah, looking forward to checking out the rest of Infestation. Second level looking like it drops us deeper into the depths in an environment that no doubt Civvy would enjoy, and chances are you'll probably spot me playing through the rest of it at some point over on Twitch. But in the meantime, feel free to give it a whirl for yourself, and by all means let me know what you thought of not just this, but all of the mods featured here today in the comments below. So there you have it, a batch of promising projects that have caught my attention recently, and certainly a few that I'll be keeping my eye on for the foreseeable future. Hopefully a few of these have piqued your interest too. If that's the case, the links, as I've already mentioned, are in the description below. And until next time, this has been Mr. Icarus. Thank you very much for watching. Icarus out.